All right. Hello, my friends. We're going to talk about the astrology for the week of September 11th through September 17th. So looking down, I've got my ephemeris here. It's actually my Llewellyn calendar. I love this book. They got another one out. I think I showed that last time we did the weekly forecast. Lots of great new things in here. Maynard did some things that is now in this book. It works however it works. And so for those of you who are following, because you're learning to read astrology, you get out that Llewellyn book or any other book that you have that has the aspects in it for each day. And that's what I use. See the highlighted there. We got one there. There's the new moon. And we got a couple others. So let's get started. On Monday, September 11th, I'm going to share my screen. I always do. I almost forgot. On the 11th of September, I like to say it that way. It's not so triggering. We actually have the exact aspect for the day is when the sun and Chiron, the wounded healer, Chiron in Aries, Chiron retrograde in Aries. It's been that way for a while. He spends a lot of time retrograde, like all the outer planets. We talked about that in a prior forecast as well. Wounds that are personal coming to the surface. Wounds that are really deep in. You might have even felt that just a couple days ago. Actually, let me go back. A couple days ago when I'm saying a couple days ago, but what it was actually on Wednesday the 6th, and I'm recording this and posting this on Thursday the 7th. It's when the sun and Mercury were conjunct. And I do want to show you that just for the heck of it. Okay. I had somebody ask me a really important question today. And let's just go back to right now. Here we are. And we'll go back one more day. And here is where the sun and Mercury were conjunct. I'm going to go back in time for when it was exact, but no worries. It was at 13 degrees of Virgo. Now, it is not quincunx Chiron at that point, but it sure is close. When the sun and the sun and Mercury are conjunct the way they are in this chart that was of September 6th, it can cause and create and stir up a lot of emotions, right? On what we need to speak about and speak through and speak about. A lot of information there. So the person was talking, it's like, oh, what was going on Wednesday? It's like, oh, something, had to just do some real deep conversation with somebody about something and just skimming the surface, not to reveal anybody's personal information. But they just had to meet each other where they were to work through an issue. And one person, it was a deep personal issue, and the other person didn't realize they were being so assertive in a situation. So they both pulled things together, which was beautiful. But this was an opportunity. The reason I mentioned that is because just a few days later, and I will probably share this with that person because when we get talking, we talk about all kinds of things, but I wasn't reading this person's chart. It was just a conversation. But seeing now that on Monday, the 11th, when the sun and Chiron is that wounded healer, and knowing that this conversation that she had with this other person was a very deep subject for the other person. It was a wound that was coming to the surface that she hadn't witnessed before and realized, and that would be a really healing conversation for the other person especially, but also for the person I was speaking to, because she actually had an opportunity to really see a person for who they are and have that compassion for them and that understanding. And they came to an agreement about whatever it was they were talking about. I don't even know what they were talking about, but I know the situation, and that's what it was. And this shows me, and this tells me that if you find or have found yourself over the last few days in that situation where you're trying to have a conversation with somebody, you can just tell, it's like, what is wrong here? Why aren't we meeting together? You and that other person tend to meet together on things, and it doesn't feel right. Just understand that one of you is coming from a place that is a deep inside painful wounds. And that's the Chiron in Aries. And while on September 6th, Mercury and the sun were conjunct, and it would have immediately, it could have initiated that deep stuff coming to the surface. But now that we're on September 11th and not September 6th, you know, the sun is making that quincunx. So it brings things together, you know, picking at an old wound and working through what is still remaining. You think something's healed and it's not. It's those layers. I don't like onions. I know they're good for you, but they're not good for me. But layer upon layer upon layer. So that's what we get when we have the sun, quincunx, Chiron. And we don't have any other exact planetary aspects until we get to that new moon on the 14th. So what I will do right now is just animate the chart. I can't see, my toolbars in the way. I just want to come back. Let's do this right. Here we go. You know, sometimes the software is, you gotta just make it work. There we go. I just had to tell it what to do. I didn't tell it the right thing. We have the moon in Leo, and when the moon is in the sign of Leo, we're in the balsamic lunar phase. And this is also on Monday. So the aspect between the sun and Chiron is late in the day on Monday. So throughout the morning, the moon will sextile Mars, and then the moon will make a conjunction to Venus. And here in this chart, you can see that the moon and Venus are together. And that's just the moon going over the area where Venus was retrograde for such a long time, for quite a few weeks. And it's stirring that up. The moon in Leo can be very, it can stir the ego, especially if you own a moon that is a fire sign, meaning if in your natal chart, your moon is Leo, Sagittarius, or Aries, when the moon in the sky is in one of those fire signs, it will stir you up, and you'll just either feel feisty or adventurous, or like you're not being seen enough. And, you know, because that's the Leo, the ego needs to be seen. And so we're going to be having that for quite a few days. So I'm going to go just to the next day, which is the 12th, Tuesday, the 12th. And the moon is still in Leo. The moon is moving very slow right now. It's just because of where it is in the sky. And it doesn't make a perfect circle around us. That's why we have those super full moons. So sometimes it's further away from us, and sometimes it's closer to us. And that shifts throughout the year. And so right now, Leo, when the moon is in Leo, it's moving slower. It takes more than 2.5 days to go through that sign. It's just about 3 days. So the 11th, part of the 10th, part of Sunday the 10th, all of the 11th, all of the 12th, the moon is in the sign of Leo. And it's making all that, it's connecting in one way or another with all the planets, because when it moves through all 30 degrees of a zodiac sign, it's going to make an aspect to every single planet. And so that means that things will be stirred up. However, we're in the balsamic lunar phase, that last little 2-3 days before the new moon. And so we're in it. And since the moon is moving slow, it's lasting extra long, meaning it's about 4 days actually this time around. And it gives us alternatives, or opportunities, I think is the better word. It gives us opportunities to really get in there and start to distill what we know, distill things. Like taking a lot means distillation is taking a lot of something, a large volume of something, and making it a smaller volume, but more condensed. And that is like alcohol, right? We can do that with alcohol. Now, I want you to look at it with your own information, your own context in your own life, what's going on in your own life, where there's just too much going on, and we need to bring it down to something more manageable and something a little more condensed, like running all the errands in one day, as opposed to I'm going to go do this errand one day, that errand the next, whatever, just what your life is. If it's crazy busy and you can't, and you're spinning your wheels, or you're finding like, oh my God, so much time has gone by. How am I even getting anything done? You feel like you're catching up, or always playing catch up. That's me. I got both hands up on that one. I'm keeping up. I am actually keeping up, but sometimes in my head, I feel like I'm playing catch up. I don't want to do that. Stop and look at your life, look at your current life situations, and then just look at it and say, all right, what am I doing here? What do I need to just put to the wayside for now? I don't need to do that load of laundry tonight. I'm simplifying it because we should. I don't need to do that load of laundry tonight because, by the time it gets to 8 o'clock, I just really do need to, I've given everything all day. It's time to chill. Do it tomorrow. Things like that. You have to, it's everyday activities that we can use this astrology for. And the lunar cycle is what happens day in and day out, and actually even hourly, how our moods can shift and change hourly. So moon in Leo from Sunday, the 10th through the 11th, while the sun and Chiron are quincunx, and through the 12th, which has no other planetary aspects, but that sun quincunx Chiron is definitely something that will be lingering and with us for a few days. So pay attention to how that feels to you. Let's go back to this next chart. Oh yeah, I only have 5 charts for us today. Here's the new moon in the sign of Virgo, and this is on Thursday. Hey, wait a minute. Why didn't I just, all right. I didn't talk about Wednesday the 13th because there really is absolutely nothing going on except early in the morning for the East Coast of US, the moon enters Virgo, and Virgo is where it's going to be a new moon. So let's animate this, and we'll just animate this, and we'll just move to the 13th. Here's the 13th. The moon is in Virgo. It conjuncts Mercury and opposite Saturn throughout the day on Wednesday, the 13th. So paying attention to the details will be important. And I want us to make lists. It's part of the new moon forecast. But right now, while we're still in this balsamic lunar phase, the final lunar phase, I mean, you should see my Post-it notes. Look, every one of these things, I'm not going to hold them still so you can't read them. All right. This is my list. You would think. One more. Oh, nope, there's another one. Okay. This is my point. This is stupid. I could use one piece of paper and make a list, but I love my Post-it notes. I'm a Gemini. I like them. And those are all things that I'm working on. And there is one more. But these are things that I'm working on. I'll get done this week. And today's Thursday, so I got to get my ass in gear, right? I'll get them all done, but through tomorrow. And this is one of those things on that list. I want you to, while the moon is in that phase, that lunar phase, as it's coming through, this is next week, by the way, don't forget, distill that and like bring everything together and make it more organized and really do a list, so you can actually see things getting checked off, so you can feel accomplished and and then you can actually recognize, and you can stop hurrying and thinking like, I'm always catching up. I got to catch up. I got to catch up. You can actually see when you make a list, this is so Virgo, that you are catching up and you have caught up. And it's okay to put more on the to-do list. But the point is like, you can actually see your accomplishments. And that's what I want, how I would use this, how I plan on using this balsamic lunar phase in the sign of Virgo before we have the new moon in Virgo. And there is the new moon in Virgo. So let's go back to that image. And that new moon in Virgo is on the 14th, and it is at 9:40 p.m. Again, tons and tons of information about that in the new moon forecast. But in essence, or in a nutshell, 21 degrees of Virgo, 21 degrees and 50 minutes is where Mercury went retrograde on August 23rd. And now we're having a new moon there. And a few hours after this new moon, Mercury goes direct. Lots of conversation about that. And it's written out on my blog post too. So if you haven't gone there, go ahead and, log into the web, become a member on the website, because the only thing that does is like, it just keeps your information. So if you want to book a session, you're already in there. But you don't have to, but you also will notified that I put up a blog post. So you can do that and you can read it there. Just DorothyMorganastrologer.com and hit blog. And yeah. And you can join the newsletter if you like, because that will come into your inbox and then it will send you to the blog post. It's just typical stuff. All right. What does this tell me? This tells me with the Virgo new moon, And it being in the same location as Mercury's station back in August 23rd, I want you to go back. I want you to peek around, poke around, figure out what it was you were working on or not working on, what was working, what wasn't working, because that is, this new moon says we're going to initiate something new based off of what frustrations that you want to alleviate. How can you move forward on something that has been causing you issues and problems, something that is of importance and of value to you. All right. Virgo is about rules, our duties, our schedule, our health, our routine, co-workers, jobs, things like that. So that's what we got going on. There's a lot of Virgo stuff because Mercury is stationary in Virgo. He's in his own sign, so he's definitely going to be causing a little bit, kicking up a bit of dust. And here it is on Friday the 15th, Friday, September 15th, we have Mercury doing its direct motion at 8 degrees of Virgo. So 8 degrees of Virgo to 23, and then retrograde to 23, back to 8, and then forward again to 23. So we have, gosh, what is that? 3, 6, 9. It's around 9 to 10 weeks in the sign of Virgo as it's moving back and forth in those degrees. So you'll want to find that in your own area. And so what that tells me too, in addition to it moving direct, the station days, the days when it is moving, it doesn't move on those days. And we have to give it wiggle room, meaning there's no wiggle room. It just means that the day before, the day of, and the day after, so September 14, 15, 16, this is just my experience of it. To me, this is when it's typically the most difficult because we feel stuck. And I just said at the new moon, it's about, you know what it's about, setting new goals, new intentions, all of these things. I want us to wait a couple days. Give yourself a couple days. I mean, if you feel like doing your new moon intentions and rituals and all of that on Monday night, September 14th, you go right ahead. But it's at 9:40 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So you don't ever want to do new moon intentions before the new moon, because it's not a new moon. It's about releasing before that, the balsamic lunar phase, releasing, distilling, condensing things, creating more space for ourselves. And then when we get to that new moon, then we can set our intentions. I would wait personally. I would wait a couple of days. I would get Mercury moving forward. So I would wait until like the 16th or the 17th, when we can feel like things can start to wiggle. We have a little wiggle room and things can start to move a little bit. But you have your own agency, so you decide what feels right for you. The astrology says maybe just give it a day or two after the new moon. We can always do our new moon intentions while the moon is in the new phase and the crescent phase. You can actually do it anytime before the full moon, but it's really good to do it before the first quarter, which means the first week, 1 week from the new moon to the first quarter. So always do those rituals and always set those intentions, at least in that first week. Especially, just do that if you can. That's my experience. It's really good, really important. Also on Friday the 15th, we have the sun making a trine aspect to Uranus. Where is it? There's the sun and there's Uranus at 22. Grand trine in Earth right here, because Pluto's almost there too, right? Opposite Neptune. That's what that new moon, I talked about that with the new moon as well. So you'll go listen to that. But this is the day that the sun and Uranus are in that exact aspect. In the new moon forecast, I talked about this in depth. But what you can do with this is to, this is when it's exact, right? So we gave a little wiggle room. So sun, trine, Uranus, it's inspirational. I love it. It gives us inspiration, opportunities to make a difference and to set some new goals. So that's not bad either. Honestly, I don't personally think it's a good idea to do new moon rituals when the moon is below the horizon, or when the sun is below the horizon. So we got to get the moon and the sun apart a little bit. It's your call. All right. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about will be on Sunday, the 17th. It's at 2 in the morning, East Coast time. So if you're on the West Coast, it's going to be on the night of the 16th. The moon in Libra, so we're still looking balance, harmony, fairness, justice. The moon will conjunct Mars at 4 in the afternoon on the 16th. But when we get to this late in the 16th on the west coast of the United States, or early in the morning on the 17th here on the east coast of the US and even Central Time, we have this aspect between Venus. Let me find her. There she is at 15 Leo and Jupiter at 15 Taurus. 15 fixed degrees, 15th degree of a fixed sign is difficult and uncomfortable. And we're feeling like something has to give us a really big push. It's not an easy aspect to process and work with. Venus and Jupiter have been, this is the third and final time, they have been together, which the first time was June 11th of this year. The second time was August 22nd. And now here we are with Venus direct and Jupiter retrograde, still at 15 degrees of their zodiac, their respective zodiac signs. And it's the third and final time. This can help us to, these are the two benefic planets. So even though it's a fixed square, you know, something good, this is what it is, something good can come out of an issue, a financial problem, a denial. You know, for instance, if one of those other dates you wanted to go for a loan of some sort and you were denied, you know what, it was most likely for the best. So you can find another approach and come at it at this point in time. This is a little more beneficial with Venus direct, Jupiter retrograde, because this way we're not going to overspend or overextend ourselves. So that's one probability. And then we have others when it comes to partnerships and relationships. Venus is always, it's about what we love and what we value in our finances. And Venus is love, Venus and Leo, you know, our heart's desire. So it could be that there is something going on here too on Sunday. So we're going to feel it both days, Saturday and Sunday, the September 16th and September 17th. We'll feel it. We'll feel that some of the problems coming to a head or financial situations, you can actually see the truth of it. Again, like I mentioned, that example. Same thing with relationships, you know, or just paying for a big bill, you know, if you got married recently. I know a couple who got married recently, and they got married just the day after Venus went direct. They've been a couple forever, and they finally decided to get married and spending, you know, put a down payment on our house or have a wedding is what I was told by one of them. And it's just like, yeah, that's crazy. So for them, they're going to be looking at the bills that they have to pay in regard to that wedding and the choices that they made. It's what they wanted to do, but you still have to pay the piper, right? You still have to pay for all of it. That's funny. You got to pay for what you got, what you wanted. And that's what that can show up to. But then again, like I said, it can be a real positive thing where if something didn't work out during one of those other dates in June or August, then this could be an opportunity where it comes together for you after all. Or you're able to actually see, because Mercury is direct now as well, you might be able to actually see how, even though something didn't work out, how it's a benefit to you that it didn't work out. Car payment. I keep talking about car payments. I gotta do that still. It'll take time. Taurus rising. Jeez, I'm gonna do it slow. All right. Thank you, my loves. Thank you so much for your support. I'm always grateful that you're here. And yeah, I'll leave it with that. Long day. Blessings, everybody. Namaste.